Welcome to the Tug of Heart podcast on Strong Island Radio. This is the place where we dig deep into the heart to rise in love. So let's join good friends Lori and Marianne as they discuss understanding and living from the heart.
Hello and welcome to Tug of Heart. I am Lori Cordova. I'm here with the lovely Marianne Francisi. How are you saying your name today?
You got it, Francisi. Hi, Lori.
That's the way I've been saying it. So anyways, we are coming back to finish our talk about authenticity because this is big stuff, Marianne. We can never really exhaustively speak about it, I'm sure. But we had spoke a little bit about the authentic self, not in isolation, but as an individual, where that comes from. Now, I wanted today to talk a little bit more about individually who we are authentically while maintaining who we are within our community, our family, so relationally, and also with giving reverence to our responsibility as human beings. Where does this come into play with our authentic self? What's the difference between I decide what I'm going to do with myself, I'm true to myself, and my true self says this is uncomfortable, I'm not doing it, versus in authenticity, I accept that part of me is attached to a family, to a community, whether by birth or by choice. This is how I entered the world and under these conditions, and whatever else I've included in my free will, now I must maintain a responsibility. And to be most authentic to myself is to maintain this and to stay dedicated to the continuity of all of these, right?
Yes. Got it.
So, and this is where wow, things expand quickly because there's so many schools of thought on this. And we offer our perspective from what we've lived. You have roots in Italy. I have in Spain. Beautiful place, beautiful thinking. Kind of in the middle, getting a little more east, but not super east. Then there's this eastern line of thinking, which is places community above individuals, okay? And in the West, we're very much in love with this idea of autonomy, freedom. I represent myself. I have the right and the freedom to say goodbye, mother, and not just talking about running away to the mailbox for attention, but I can continue going after 18. And there's the way that our society is, and with modern day, it's everybody may or may not even know about it. So I could do whatever I like, but does it remove that? The flip side is you go to the East and they're able to maintain this idea that the community is the most important, and their ideals, that there were established tradition, which I'm a fan of tradition, and you are too. But at the same time, if you want to call it a price, but one of the things that comes attached with is that there is not much room for that personal voice. It's more important that you hold your place in this community than to be an individual.
Yes.
My personal belief is that the truth of who we are and humanity is somewhere in the middle. More than the middle, it's a little bit of both. It's that yes and. What do you think, just coming into that part, Marianne?
No, I think that the community piece is very important because community is ultimately where we heal.
Oh, I like that.
And so in talking about the heart, and even in talking about the authentic self, at being at the core of the heart that connects us to all humanity, in our authenticity, if we are in fact vulnerable, then we are easily wounded. We're easily hurt, and then become these barriers towards the authentic self. And the only way that we remember who we are at our core, is through the love of community. So for me, community is very, very key. Community can also be very, very limiting, right? We heal in community, and we can be locked into certain roles in community based on how we serve the good of the community.
Right.
And that's limiting. That can be very, very limiting. We're usually more than, the one role that we've been placed in the family.
Right. And sometimes communities need to do that evolving you're talking about.
Yes.
So what about that? Because what if you cannot do it? Who are you authentically when they've now gone into anything that compromises your morality, which is this authenticity? And we see a lot of that struggle. So, I'm actually truly just asking you because I don't know.
Well, I guess what is kind of coming to mind is that community, to me, really happens in real time.
Right.
It's around the table, it's at the events, it's human to humans. And we're living in a period where virtual community feels very real. Now, yes, virtual communities can be very supportive. And they're virtual. You're not like rubbing elbows, smelling each other, dealing with each other's day-to-day kind of authentic expressions of being human beings. And so coming back to the importance of just being ourselves within real life situations.
Right. And we have to find that place to be ultimately good leaders in the community ourselves, which is the hope when you move into that place of radical justice. Your term. Do you remember saying that?
Yes.
The radical justice, which is this higher form of empathy. So empathy at its best use is the way that my mental vision of it is that.
Right.
For now, until we develop that further. But what you're saying is so right about starting with specifically the young, because this is where we're seeing a lot of change in these virtual communities. They have this thing I was telling you today that it's the Gen I-14s. This is new to me.
I don't know what that is
Okay,
even.
they're brought up by the internet.
I-14 it's called?
For teenagers.
Oh, I-14.
Oh, yeah, that does make sound. That you said that.
Yes.
So they're overexposed to information and underexposed to meaningful relationships. And so what happens is, as adults and hopefully leaders, a little bit more comfortable in the leader role and guides and helpers, I like to think that as we get older, we become more helpful in our community.
Yes.
And so in that position, we can mistake this superficial knowledge for maturity. And kids are getting away with a lot, and they're getting equipped with a lot that they're not ready to be equipped with.
I agree.
Because they are rattling off stuff that they have access to, but it's not that, it's information, but it's not like what you guys take that next level of wisdom where it's applicable wisdom or even knowledge. I can apply it in a healthy way to alter my life and the lives of others in a positive way.
Right.
And that's ultimately what we would want. I don't know why I thought of this, but when you were talking about the virtual community, I was having this vision, like, not like a vision in the desert, but a vision nonetheless, daydream if you want to call it, where I was thinking, my gosh, when did we do this where you see people online being cruel or like really letting each other have it? They're telling each other off ultimately. And I had this weirdest sensation that does not find any kind of congruency with my senses. And to be human is to have senses, like you were saying, the smell, the hearing, the
Yes.
5 basics at least. And I was like, Marianne, do you realize what has happened when you picture this? I don't know if it's just me or if this is translatable, but I was picturing people are screaming at each other silently. Nobody made a sound. Nobody really made a sound. They're typing it.
Yes.
And it had this sterility to it that was so uncomfortable, because to me, you know what, Marianne? You come scream at me and you scream at me good.
Yep.
So I see it and feel it and know it.
Yes.
And then that gives us something to sort through.
Absolutely.
It's not a block.
Absolutely.
And
It's real.
does it give you a weird feeling, or is it just me? But I'm like, how are we screaming and no one has opened their mouth?
Yeah, no,
It's
that's
so
That's
unnatural.
precisely it. And so
What does that mean?
And so the whole thing can feel, in some ways, inauthentic, and then in others, it can still hold a tremendous impact because it is a public sort of
It lands
shaming.
authentically,
Yes.
even though the source is not.
Yes.
And I think
Yes.
that's where kids and adults, everybody, gives each other the power that comes with that strong, heart-filled voice
Right.
of anger, of pain, of listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't really do that. They could be in 3 conversations rattling off opinions. It could be cut and paste with an exclamation and somebody has just screamed to you, but they never did.
Right.
And
There
it's
isn't
like such a
listening.
false. Anyways, I know I'm just going on about it, but so relationally, that's at least that has got to be inauthentic. Why does it matter? It does, though, right?
It does.
Because we are influenced still, because we see exclamation, caps. So we're being influenced, which means shaped. But at the same time, we're not even connected enough to have any sense that took in that person's, like, at least disposition. And I will say this, when I think of, apart from that continuity, when I think of, along my thinking of during the week, what does it mean to be authentic? And I was thinking, one of the things that I can count on in people to be authentic, pretty much no matter where you're at, is disposition.
Interesting.
I find that one of the hardest to not be authentic about, and to maintain if it's not true. And so, except for virtual.
Virtual, you can keep up a false
You can be very
disposition.
strong, and
Okay. Yes.
and it's that the disposition is just like how you respond to stuff. The tendency of the way the voice, the tendency your voice takes. That's the way I see disposition, unless I'm missing it. But generally, I would think of that. It's a very visual, like, I can't rate anybody's disposition. We don't read, well, you maybe can, the subtext, but I cannot.
No, there's a lot of confusion that happens.
Do you remember I was
Even
telling you
with
we were texting?
Yeah.
I was telling you one time we were texting. I'm like, Marianne, I don't know when texting ends. And
Yes.
you told me, and I've used this. I'm sure people want to write you letters to thank you. When you're like, usually when they send an emoji, it's over. Laura.
That's true. That's
I
the
didn't know that.
punctuation, right?
No, but because I can't
an
tell.
emoji.
And then
Goodbye.
also
Done.
people are being maybe mysterious, ...
Yes.
And I'm like, and? They're like, no, that was it.
Or quick. I know I answered someone in text with just a word because I was in between something. And they were like, "Are you mad at me?" I'm like, "What? No, I just
I
was
do tell
getting
people
right
that. I'm
to
like,
the
how do
point."
you-
And it is difficult to see, right? So we're just getting the words and we're not seeing. Yeah.
Yeah, it matters. This is, I think we'll come back to this because it might deserve its own, like, where does the heart play in virtuality? And what is virtual? Why name it virtual? It's anything but.
Yeah.
We'll get back to that.
Pretty
I do
real.
want to say,
Real
so when we
consequences.
were talking about this, because I'm going to try to just quickly tell you my little thoughts about community, groups, families, or even just a couple or a friendship. and authenticity, what that means to be both, because I'm more interested actually in what you might be thinking, because you spend a lot of time on this as a practice. And with children doing that, what I was calling like that moral psychology, the empathy training, and the authenticity that includes those around you that you share a life with, whether you like it or not, whether it's a couple feet away or online, you're now sharing a life if you've entered one another's space. So my mom's grandfather is Navajo, he's deceased now. And so I don't know as much as I should about these things. He had died years before I was born. And so I know what my mom said or what she wanted me to know of it,
Yes,
whether she used it accurately or not. But one of the things that I do know, just from growing up among many First Nations in the Southwest anyways, because this is held, they may have just a little bit different wording for it, but they have what they would refer to as the Diné. Or you might hear the Diné, D-I-N-E-H, and they could even spell it different. But several of these groups have this word which simply means the people. And they also stress an importance on authenticity and individual authenticity. However, they want to be clear that part of being authentic is being authentically one of your people, one of the people. I belong to the people, and we live as such. So when they're teaching this, the bottom line is that you know who you are authentically when you can say, should this come up, I would behave like this, and then you can predictably. Okay? Or you could say, our family does not do this.
Right.
So it could be clans or groups within a tribe, but also a tribe that it all falls in line. So your family has some wiggle room for their own individuality. You have more as an individual within that family. But you never get so wild that you could not call yourself one of the people.
Yes.
And I feel like it's a fair place to start to have a look at what it means to be authentic and to share living. And I had thought about this. One of the things that we say, and this makes me think so much of you, and this is where I will turn it over to you, is that when you know the authenticity of a person or a part of a person among First Nations and this idea of the people, one of the ways that you know is that predictability can happen between people. So, for instance, if somebody came up to me and said, Marianne wants you to do this, and it just does not fall in line with that predictability I know about you, I would be able to say, that just doesn't sound like Marianne. And I could pretty accurately get it right. Have you ever had this with your children? This is kind of funny. If somebody reports something one of your children has done, whether it's their grandmother, another sibling, the school, you have a really good idea as a mom, yeah, it sounds like they could do that, or not my daughter.
Right.
I'll leave it to you from there, but that's that knowing their authentic self, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that there are times where we all act outside of our authentic self, and we hear like that surprises me, or
I've heard you say that.
Or is I've said to kids, like, is that really who you are?
Right.
To push someone down on the playground, does that really feel like who you are? And they'll always say, no, but I was so mad. Okay, so we've got to get this return and figure out other ways to deal with the anger.
Yes.
Because there are some times where we absolutely act outside
Get a
of
little
who we
wild.
are.
Yes.
Like, is that really you? Or, I've certainly heard the expression, you're better than that, right? It's not so much you're better than that as, oh, like
Whoops.
you've kind of veered off from who you are. But then even bigger, because we're talking about community, and it's so helpful to be in line with the good stories of your community, of what it means to be
Yes.
of the people.
Yes.
Because then we're able to go back to not just you, is that who you are? It can go to, does that fit with who we are?
Or we've seen it before and it was resolved.
Right. So
It's inclusive.
It's so much more inclusive, and it also points to a way out because there is a history in community beyond however much life we've lived, right? You are going back to your great grandfather, right? So there's a part of this lineage, of this history that has come before you that can help support your current quest,
Right.
search, part of the path. Like your great grandfather hasn't been brought to the table until now.
Right.
So now is his time. He offered something that's helping you to understand something a little bit clearer and carrying it now forward. So it does allow for just so much more support in understanding this process of being human. But I think we do a lot of shaming around that's not who you are.
Right.
And stop that. This is an action. We're going to bring you back to who you are, and we're going to bring you back within a community that understands we all fall out of who we are.
Oh, yes.
It's so hard to
You
remain
go back-
authentic.
And that's
So much
we're
pressure.
not ever bound to one fixed nature, which we were saying before. And just bringing it back to like First Nation people also, I wanted to add that they would have sometimes two chiefs. The peace one, the war one.
Yes.
Because we're both
Yes.
fiercely.
Yes.
Fiercely peaceful. We're fiercely defensive when it comes to us, the
Yes.
people. That's okay because you are both. The thing is, when you shame, especially the very young, a lot of times when they've gotten, a little out of line, a lot of times it was accidental. They were having so much fun, someone was
Yes.
bumped.
Yes.
And so you can make that mistake of making them dislike that voice of the people.
Yes. Yes.
Now, why would you want to alienate them when you're saying you are us?
Yes.
You cannot be both. And because you also want to always teach by example, like you and I say, that for us and our community and our people, we're receptive and we catch you. We catch you when you
So nice.
when you try something big and you fall.
Fails,
We
right.
catch you when you're being naughty and you fall, because
Right.
that's also who we are. And so help me God, that's who I want to be and my people to be.
Yes.
And not that judging voice, because the thing is, you don't want to mistake. We come to this after talking about conscience.
Yes.
They're not your conscience.
No.
That's
No.
an individual thing, and morality is an individual thing that must be established. Now, you can have the common good and the voice of the common good. So what that sounds more like, which I take you as an example when you've had to be corrective, it is corrective, and it's corrective through instruction.
Yes.
So it's not, why would you do that? They don't know. I don't know why I ate 3 bites more than I could hold a day. Why are you
Yeah.
asking? Why are you going to put that on a child? I don't know why. I mess up as an adult. I can't tell you why. I say I won't do stuff and I do it. So no, and I haven't seen you like, why would you so what we do know is we can say, let me tell you why we don't do that. Let me tell you, you could even take it the next step, which you do. let me guide you to your own conscience. I know a way to guide you to where that can provide the answer. You already have the answer.
Right.
And there can be certain questions that you ask. Remember you used to do the guided daydream?
Yes.
And I used to say,
"Oh my gosh,
I'm still in
loved it.
love with that.
I
and,
love
and
that
I had
too.
said, this is, so what I call it, to those of you listening, is I've renamed it as the guided reverie,
Oh,
which is a
Fancy.
beautiful way to picture futuristically how you might behave, which is the same as dental care, medical, everything else that's important, the same as savings, the same as having a skill before you have a job.
Yes.
This is the natural order, right? As opposed to chaos. The order of the way things work is, let's decide now how we will be so that we become predictive in a good way. And so it's,
and it lines up.
and that was
with
your
the
bully
value,
training,
right?
right? What shall
Yes.
we do when this happens? And you know what else? You let them decide.
Well, I let them decide kind of who they can be. And that is the point of the variety that exist in authentic heart living, right? So and the bullying program is actually a great example of it, because it's how do we all respond to bullying in this community? We're against it. It's not allowed, right? The kids are like, no bullying around. Okay. So if it turns up, because it will, we're human, things may happen, how can we respond to it? So we're going to say no bullying, right? That's one possible response. That might not fit with the authenticity of a child who is very quiet and shy and doesn't feel like they can step up and be the big savior of the day.
Right.
But can they still have a place? What would authentically feel right? And I think that was the brilliance of our bullying program, was that we gave them a series of roles they can choose from. You could be the Speaker of the House who steps in and says, we don't go for bullying here. You could be the Earth Angel who puts your hand on the shoulder of the person who's being bullied and just says you're not alone. You can be the peacemaker and say, come, let's go sit at the bench and we'll do our conflict resolution dialogue. You can just simply be the body that stands there in opposition and is giving the message of, I see what's happening.
Right.
And so then it allows the child to begin to tune into what feels like me. I stand against injustice. My heart does. I believe it's wrong. But if there's just one choice, which is stand up and you tell that bully off and go and send them off the playground, if that's not you, then a message begins to be developed that, I'm too weak to stand up to bullying. Other people have to do that.
Or I'm odd man out in this community.
Yeah, but I have a place, and
Right.
it's not a hero. We're not looking to make heroes. We're looking to create options, and maybe there are more options than that. And that giving the kids this sense of, let's begin to choose what feels authentically true to who you are on this particular day.
What I
in
think
this
what you're
moment.
capturing there is what you began with, which is community happens in a very present way.
Very present.
And so we have to be
It's-
prepared for that, because
Yes.
when it happens, that's the wrong time to sit back and make a chart and
Uh-huh.
work it out, because you're in the moment.
Yes.
And that's also why it's good to think about who you are in between tense moments, being in the heat of the moment, from being a child to an adult, because most of my personal corrective work, at least as an adult that I've done, is to say, dang it, I did not want to say that. I was, that was just it sounded so rude even to me, but I had already, my brain sent the message to my mouth and it was happening. And I walk away like, I bet that hurt them, right? Let's start with the sacred 7 seconds. And they didn't even get away 7 seconds without my delivery being hurtful.
Yeah.
So the takeaway from that can be like, boy, if that ever happens again, I really want to be this person. And part of it is having this authentic heart, which means to know who you are so that you know how you will behave in different situations and respond to the world. Because I think I've told you this, the state of your heart is pretty much how you're going to react to the world, and you can't.
Yes.
That comes back to the disposition. So when somebody's very rude, and I've done this too, but it can tell you need your heart cleaned up, because say I'm having a horrible day and you come up and you're like, hey, Lori, this project was a little bit late. And I'm like, listen, what do you want? I just fly off the handle and blow up. And then later, my return to you is, hey, Marianne, authentically, I'm a pretty decent girl here. I want you to know that. You caught me off guard.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. No big deal. However, by the time you get to be an adult, you did catch me off guard. And one of the things that can happen in our heart, it's the same as a filthy hotel. And if we let it get like that, that's the state it was. We were just in the dark. It's the same as having the dirtiest place you can imagine, cockroaches everywhere. But the thing is, everybody's like, it's all right. It's got the neon lights, whatever. Somebody flicks on the light and you see the scattering. It was already there.
Yes.
So at some point, you have to take this responsibility in your authenticity to say, I keep it clear of that. So when I'm not expecting somebody to come up to me, and I will not say, oh, you caught me off guard, so I responded so inappropriately, but you kind of maintain that authenticity in between these situations.
And I think that's going to come as we begin to normalize this kind of showing up and being present with where our heart is for the day.
You got to check in.
Yeah, and to make it very, very normal to be able to say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for that. Like, that was the result of me just being completely distracted today.
Yes.
Like, that has to be
But it's
normal.
still not okay.
Move on. No, it's not okay, but it is going to be part of this, like, ability to just not have the pretense, the mask of who we think we are supposed to be in certain situations.
Right.
Because you trying to hold it up when
Actually,
we
you bring
can't.
up a great point. That is right. You should be able to comfortably say, I'm barely holding it together, and I did not. That means I stitched it loosely, and there was no room for you, and here you came.
Yes.
But but that requires a trust in the forgiveness of the other person too,
Right,
and that's where, by normalizing it, people
Yes.
get used to it. Because to me, the alternative is things get weird, and they just keep getting more weird. Because now I have my choice. I say, I'm sorry, this is where I was, or I hold to this story that you're always coming at me with deadlines, and this becomes my story, the pros I'm choosing, because I don't want that surrender, because
Oh
that would
my
be
gosh.
inauthentic. That betrays myself. Authenticity is not a loyalty to ego. It's a
That's
loyalty
great.
to heart. And I think that's worth mentioning.
That is great, because if there is,
And I've
the
done that, that's how I know.
No, it's a good indication. We all have. Are we all
I
not
hold to it. I hold to
attached?
my original accusation.
Yeah, and to our justification.
Oh,
and
you
our,
bet.
oh my gosh. And there's probably some truth to that too. And there's also, if there's the twinge, if there's the tug that goes, ooh, I didn't really like, let's give it 7 seconds. And we're like, oh, is there another way through this other than having to carry the burden? Because it becomes a burden for us of this victim story. Like, I don't want to carry that. I don't want
no.
to carry that anymore, at least not at my age. I'm
No.
done.
Right.
So I've carried enough.
If we had video. If we
So-
had video, they could see your face here, but this is, I'm
Lori.
comfortable with this as a starting point, and I think
do.
we'll end up revisiting this. My gosh, to be authentic, Marianne, it does take effort, and that's how we know it is a tremendous act of love, and it begins with this self-love, and that includes,
And it makes us so much more lovable. That's the whole irony of all
You
of
are
this.
lovable now that I think of it.
The more authentic we can be, the more lovable we are.
can I
Like,
just say, and if
it's
not
just-
lovable, one of my experiences when I'm authentic, approachable. I'll take that too.
Yes, lovable and approachable.
Yeah.
And on that note,
Until
Let's
next time,
close
you
it.
can like and share, and please like and share Strong Island TV also, and on YouTube. Until next time, be authentic. Take your quiet time to discover what that means, and then practice it next time you get a chance. And also just farewell.